everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Leverage Your Podcast Show. And if you are a podcast host, this is going to be the episode that you're going to want to watch or listen because we have Jen Rogers podcast, a strategist with us, and we're going to talk about auditing your podcast. You may put a lot of work into launching it, but how much work do you put into it along the journey? So welcome to the show, Jen.
Are they still here? You used a really naughty word, audit. When you use the word audit, people tend
Oh,
to run.
that's funny. I don't think about that. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. I think of it as a good thing. Isn't that funny? I put a positive spin on it because I'm like, ooh, I can find the things that I need to tweak and focus on and where I can put my time better than other things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't get a shrinky reaction to audit, but I guess a lot of people do.
Yeah. Well, if you're still here, you don't, and that's wonderful. And you are our people for sure. Excited to talk about how you can make your show better. And that's what an audit does. An audit actually helps you make your show better. The thing is we often have those rose-colored glasses on, or we're in that content creation crunch where we just need to get an episode out. I don't know if you have ever
There.
been at a conference at 11 p.m., hiding in the closet to record the episode that's going to release at 5 a.m. in the morning, the next morning. I know someone who has, and it's not fun. It's not fun at all. And that's because you don't have a plan to record your episodes. You don't have a content creation plan that's aligned with your offers. You're just kind of winging it. And your audience can tell. They can tell when you're ready for them and when you're not ready for them. It has to do with not just what they hear on the show, not just what they see on the video. It has to do with your podcast cover art, your podcast description, your episode titles, your episode descriptions, and how you first kick off your episodes, which makes you and me soulmates, actually. We've learned something fun about one another
Yes.
in that regard.
I know. I love it. And everything has energy to it and everything has a feeling. It's part of your brand, right? Like you said, the cover, the description, the episodes, like you have to be intentional about so many pieces. And I think so many podcasters get caught up in the I have to launch, and it is a lot of work. And once it's done, they're just like almost on autopilot and just doing it week to week, just moving along and not really they lose that intentionality.
So if you are just pushing through to get the episodes released, the last thing you want to do is take time, pause, and look at what you've done. That's the hardest thing to do. And it's also one of the most beneficial things that you can do. There are a few different ways that you can audit your show. You want to talk about them?
Like, yeah.
Okay. You can ask another podcasting professional. You can. So think about who is in your circle, who you know, who you trust, and who you're willing to offer up your work to in the will you help me make my show better? And if you're going to do that, then I would definitely look at their show and I would offer them something or make sure you leave a 5-star review on their show. Do something out of kindness for them as well so that you're building this relationship, furthering this relationship along. So, a podcast, someone who podcasts already, that you value the work that they do, that you actually like their show, and ask them to take a listen and just give you some feedback because there's stuff that we're never going to be able to see. There are words that we think we're saying, or there are ideas that we are confident we are conveying, yet they're not landing. And it could just be this one little tweak, like repeating what it is that you're going to tell someone and of course, telling them and then tell them what you told them. That sort of strategy that we know works because we need to be reminded regularly. And especially with podcasting on audio, even video, because it can be so distracting watching the video, we need to be focused back in repeatedly. Remember, we're talking about auditing your show so you can make your show better. We're not talking about auditing your show in a negative context. We want to uplevel your show so that you can monetize every episode. That's my mantra, by the way. You can monetize every episode.
I love that, and you do a great job in that in your podcast. And I know you just did a series recently, and you gave so many good nuggets of different ways of looking at your podcast, of how to look at it and tweak it to make it better. But first, I want to ask you, what does better mean?
Oh, okay. How are we defining better? It depends on who you are. So here are the questions to think about. How do you individually define better? So if you're just looking to get an astronomical number of downloads and not sell anything, then, well, if you increase your downloads 10%, great. As I was sharing with you, part of our podcast strategy is our email management and our open rates in our email. And that very same series you were referring to, I shared with you that my email open rate went up 10% when I was emailing daily for each one of those episodes. And I was concerned it was going to go down. It did the exact opposite. And that points to the need for reminders, consistent reminders. So if you want more downloads, then better would be, okay, I have one, now I have two, now I have three. If you want higher email open rates and then higher click rates, then that's another way to measure. If you want to have a community and you don't have one yet, well, then how you make your podcast better is that you would invite people into a community and they would respond. If they don't respond, then there's some sort of disconnect there that you need to evaluate. Well, what's happening? So, better, my definition of better won't be your definition of better, although we may have some similarities and some similar goals. I mean, monetizing, well, how much money am I earning from my show? And I know it's a really hard thing to measure because it's not as though there's a direct line, but you definitely can ask your clients, where did you hear about me? Have you listened to the podcast? And I will share with you that I have people who have never listened to the podcast, but they open all my emails. I know this because I'm on calls with them, which ties to the series that I recently did. The first recommendation that I made was that you say, "Hey, how are you doing? I'd love to connect with you. Would you like to book a 15-minute call and just get to know each other?" And book a call. So give a link, send them to the link, have them book a call and connect with them. Ask them how they are. What hurdles are you facing right now? What do you most need help with? Because I want to create content for you that's going to help you with that. And that goes a long way, especially with all of the challenges that we're experiencing today, the disconnect that people feel. When you invite them into coffee with you and there's zero sales pitch, that's a gift. There are professional listeners. I've heard of these people. Have you heard of these people that you hire people so they just listen to you? What does that say about our society?
That's crazy. And like you said, people are looking for more human interaction, of having that relationship, being heard, being seen. And I did notice in your episodes that you invite people to have that coffee chat, and you really do speak in a way that it does feel like you're speaking to one person and not the masses. And if I remember correctly, I think in one of your episodes you touched upon that strategy.
This is my soapbox issue. I mean, I do actually have quite a few of them, but this is a top one. If I say, "Hey, how are you all doing?" or "Has anyone here ever?" then I give the people who want to opt out the opportunity to opt out. Versus when I say, "Have you ever considered what could happen for your podcast and for your business if you took the time to audit your show?" It feels very different. Versus, "Has anyone here ever?" Well, then I don't have to answer you because you've put it out to the whole group. So this right here, this conversation, I mean, I wouldn't address you as more than one person. I would address you as one person. And that is a strategy that professional speakers use. And if you are a podcaster, you're a professional speaker. And to create that connection between you and the person listening to you, you need to use the singular you. I don't know about you, but gosh, podcasting, it can feel so heavy sometimes. Can you relate? And you're asking yourself, can I relate? You're not thinking about, well, is
Right.
somebody else going to answer? So yeah, thanks for that. That was a freebie for me.
That is a great tip, and I never think of phrasing that when I am on podcasts or even honestly when I'm a host, because you do tend to think of your broad audience versus the individual. But in hearing you give that example, it does feel really personal. It does really feel like you're talking to me. So even changing that language ever so slightly is super impactful.
Yeah, it's something that you'll notice when guests come on that they'll often say your audience. And if I can edit it out, I will edit it out because of how it feels, because I know it lands very differently. And if I can't edit it out, depending on if it's something that's coming up frequently, I'll ask the guest to go back and rephrase something. It's that important.
Yeah. I love how intentional you are with that. Now, one of the phrases that you had that grabbed my attention was talking about word budget, not finances, but word budget. And that definitely piqued my interest. Can you dive into that?
Yeah, absolutely. So whenever we think about budget, obviously we do think about finances. And as a podcast host, we do words. That's what we do. So what kind of budget are we talking about? Well, it really is, it has to do with our own state of mind. And I know you've done a few episodes on this about being fully present and coming full of energy, being ready to go. So a word budget says, I'm not going to tell myself how ridiculous I am or how much I'm missing or what's not going well for me. I'm going to remind myself of the reason why it is that I am qualified to do this. So the word budget is a challenge to say, will you do zero-based budgeting for negative self-talk today? Will you try it for one day?
I love that. I know, because what's in our mind and what's in our heads and that head trash, it really does impact how you show up, how present you are, and the words that you use, like everything to do with your communication. It's mind blowing. And
Yeah.
it's not something that you work on.
Unless you're intentional. And when you do an audit, you are intentional. So you can add that to your audit checklist. So that would be what would be better, that I am aware of my self-talk and that I am intentional about my self-talk. Well, we can define better in a bunch of ways. This is
I
great. Let's see
know.
what else happens here.
Okay. Yes. And I know you're very strategic with people's podcasts in that you should monetize it, but also like bring you business, bring you revenue, help you fill your goals for your business and your impact. How do we better tie in or how do we become more intentional with our podcast and how it relates to our purpose and business?
That's a great question. Earlier, you had mentioned brand and that our podcast art, our descriptions, all of it, that it's a part of our brand. I would say it's a reflection of our brand because our podcast is not our brand. I made that mistake early on. Our podcast is not our brand. It is a reflection of our brand. So when you come together with Lindsay or I and meet up with us, we need to show up the same way that you experience us on the podcast because our brand says we have a value of fill in the blank, whatever it is. For me, if you're coming into a boot camp with me, we're going to have fun because fun is one of my values. So I want to make sure that we have fun and I want to be engaging and I want to be full of energy. So those are all things that are going to come out when you do life with me. They're a part of my brand. They're a reflection of my brand. So however you show up, wherever you are, you want to show up aligned with what you're telling people you are. Otherwise, there's that disconnect and there's that lack of trust, and that's going to repel people. And that's why people won't listen, or that's why people won't respond to your calls to action because there's something indicating to them something's not aligned here. And they may not be able to identify what it is, but something is going to feel off.
Yeah, and if there's that bit of confusion and they're not understanding something, then they're just gonna walk away.
Right. And so it goes to having a cohesive plan about, okay, so this episode, what is the business purpose of this episode? So you have a very strategic plan for the guests that you invite onto your show. You have a purpose for what you're doing, and you understand how it lines up with your business plan. So you're very clear on that. You also have a listener purpose. Hey, my audience is telling me I need more of this. So I want to make sure I bring guests in who are going to respond to the needs of my audience. So when I do that, then that's a win-win. That's intentional. And that takes planning because you're thinking about, okay, so next month, what am I offering? Because whatever I'm offering next month, we want these episodes to lead to that offer. So that answers really, how do you do better? How do you audit your show? And how do you make money with your show? Will you align it with your business plan?
Love it. You're so succinct in how you explain things. I love it. Now, where does the core premise, and like when I started my show years ago, created it, and then your business changes, right? You go on a different journey, you niche down, but somehow you don't change your podcast. And I see this over and over again. So, how is revisiting your core premise crucial, and how often should we do it?
It's a great question. So how do we revisit our core premise? We need to look at our art. What does our art say about what we do? So when I look at my podcast art says simplify podcasting. Is that a good fit with what I'm doing? Is that a good fit with my offers? Does it have SEO in it? Yes, yes, yes. So that's a good fit. Is my podcast art clean? Is it easy to read? Yes. And a lot of podcast art, mine included, has a tagline on there that indicates this is for you if. So if you just look at the thumbnail, you can see. Another strategy is that when you look at the title, you can add some extra words after your title. So it seems like your podcast name is longer. That's okay because you're using SEO and you're telling people what they're going to find in this podcast. So that's really important to be able to use what's in front of you that you have 100% control over. So when you look at your art and you look at your title and any extra descriptors you put in there, and then you look at your actual podcast description, what would you guess you do? If you didn't know what you did, what would you guess you do? Does that really align with what you do?
Yes, exactly. And the audience that you want to attract.
Yes, definitely the audience you want to attract. And you asked how often. So if you're in the middle of a pivot, God bless you. Because I know it's messy if you are pivoting. It's extraordinarily messy and you want to hold on to things from the past because you know those things. So you really need to ask those important questions. Does this align with what I'm doing next? Because if it doesn't, then it absolutely needs to go. I recommend that you have 3 or 4 pillars or strategies for your podcast. So I work with a lot of Christian entrepreneurs. So one of the pillars would be faith. So they're going to incorporate a faith episode every so often on the regular. And then if they do mindset, they might do mindset. Or if they do nutrition, then they may have once a month that they're going to bring a guest on that talks about different areas of nutrition. But they're going to have a strategy in place that says, okay, I want to address this pillar and this pillar and this pillar. So when you think about your show, what pillars are in your show that your show is addressing? Because your titles should indicate how you're showing up and how you're serving. Let's see, what else did you ask me? How often? Well, whenever you pivot, that's how often. And then, I mean, maybe once a quarter or whenever you know that you're having a shift in your offers that you might need to make a little bit of a change in what you're doing.
Now, I love how you have that framework. From a podcast host perspective, it makes it so much easier to think about your content and your episodes, what kind of guests to have. When you have that roadmap to follow, it, that is so much easier. But I also like how you brought up about the episode titles and what the topics are because again, I have, and you too have probably gone to see some shows, look at the list of the episodes, and some of them feels like one of these things just doesn't belong. Like they're like, is an episode about what? It
Yeah.
just feels misaligned.
Yeah. Or you don't know what the episode is about. We want to get, so one of my challenges, I consider myself to be really quite clever and it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And that's a challenge for me to be clear, not clever, to say, okay, if I looked at this, am I going to be able to notice what's in this episode? And I will share with you, I've been known to change my titles after I've released the episodes. When I look at an episode and the downloads don't line up with the normal downloads, I'll go back and I'll look at that title again. And I'll say, huh, I think I'm going to change it. I'm going to change it and see. And I typically, not always, but most always, get more downloads. It's a very interesting thing. So I know that I've missed something initially with that title.
Weirdly enough, I've never thought of changing the episodes once it's done. But
They're
that
never
is
done.
but that yeah, right? That is such a great tip though, to go back and change the titles if you're not getting the action that you wanted. Such a great
Yeah.
tip. Now, do you with your clients recommend, I'm sure it depends, but like series versus seasons versus just ongoing?
Great question. Have you ever noticed that when new podcasters come on, they typically want to do seasons? And then when you ask the question, what is the purpose of the seasons? They don't have an answer. Well, I just thought that's what you do. You just make it a season. Well, maybe you do make it a season if you're a crime show and you're solving one crime over the season. Maybe you do make it a season if you know, hey, I'm only going to release. There's a coworker of mine. I say coworker, a colleague of mine, and she releases episodes. I think 10 in a bunch, and then she's offline for a while and then
Yeah.
she releases another 10. So that's an upfront decision where she said, this is what I'm going to do. Now, I can't remember if she uses seasons in there. I think she does. So it's really up to you. Does it make sense? What value, really, what value does a season add? So when I think about my show, I don't have a good reason where a season would add value. But when I think about a crime show and solving that, that makes a lot of sense to me. So season one, episode, whatever it is. So it really does, it does depend. What I guess the question I would ask you to think about is, what is your business purpose for that decision, no matter what decision it is? How does this add value to your business? How does this align with your goals? And then, of course, how does it serve your clients as well?
Absolutely. Um, yeah, and I always think that following someone else's plan is never a good idea, especially if you don't know why they're doing it. You're like, "Oh, they're doing a series, maybe I should do a series." It's like
Yeah.
like you said, you have to look at your business and what value it's gonna bring to your business, your impact, and, yeah, the why.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about going back to when you first podcasted, when you first sat down and recorded your episode, I mean, I was a clueless wonder. Well, I'm just going to sit down and record an episode. I didn't have a plan at all, and that's okay. It's how I know the hard way, which is why I want to help podcasters who want to launch, relaunch, or consider is podcasting right for me. I can help you determine whether or not that's the next best step for you because I don't want you to experience what I experienced because it's no fun creating content that goes nowhere. And that little disconnect that you feel, I mean, it can steal your dream because it's going nowhere. And you think, okay, did I completely miss it? And it may not be that you missed the thing, the core that's in your heart to deliver, but it's the framework. There is a framework for putting together a good episode. I know you know it because I hear it on every episode of yours that I listen to. There is a framework. And there's a reason why you start out a certain way. There's a reason why you don't say go buy my stuff right away. And there's a reason why you wait before you introduce yourself because with all the love in the world, nobody cares about you until you give them a reason to care. And your giving them a reason to care is creating an episode that is so compelling that draws them in so they can respond to what you're sharing. That's your job. In all reality, when you guest or when you host, it's almost not even necessary to give a CTA. Hear me out on this. I want you to give a CTA at least 3 in an episode, okay? But what I mean by that is that you are so interesting. You are so compelling that people want to learn more about you. I mean, think about it. Have you ever been at a keynote and you're listening to the speaker and you are blown away? There's no CTA, there's no QR
Right.
code up yet. There's none of that. But you know what you're doing? You're on your phone. Who is this
Checking them
person?
out.
Yeah, you absolutely are. You're checking them out with intent. There's something else you want from them. You want to know more about them. And this is why it's really important that your other assets are lined up too.
Absolutely. Now, do you work with people that have not had a podcast yet? Like you launch them, or do you work with clients that already have a show and they need to pivot?
Yes, and yes. Yes. Yeah. Listen, launching is hard. Launching is a lot of work. And if you don't have assets created, as far as if you don't have if you're starting brand new and you don't have an email list and you don't have lead magnets and you don't have a community, you don't have any of those things, it's going to take you longer to launch if you want to launch well. If you just want to wing it, then you can wing it. It's not going to go well for you because there's not a sequential path for people to follow. So when you give a call to action on your show, you want to ensure that it actually works. So when I say, hey, go check out the guides for hosting and guesting, I need to go make sure that the link I'm giving out actually works. And then, I don't know about you, I send myself a bunch of emails that I end up deleting. I'm like, okay, did it work? I got to make sure that the whole sequence worked and that it says the right stuff, that all the links work. So it is time intensive. So I've recently wrapped up a project with a new client who is launching. She's launching in a couple of months, and she has taken the time to build out everything in Go High Level,
Awesome.
the lead magnets, the email sequences, the assets, and we worked to get her podcast episodes. So she's got 10 in the pipeline, which is great. So she knows exactly what it is, what this episode is designed to direct you here. So when you start following a framework and you show up authentically, you speaking the way that you speak, it is a winning combination. And we need elements of, well, we need a winning combination. We don't need
Yeah.
elements, we need a winning combination. And this is why it's really important that you hire a coach. So if you are on the fence about, hey, do I launch a podcast? Do I need to relaunch? Or what do I do if things aren't going well? Then I really encourage you to find a coach that you can connect with that can help you, because there's a reason why you're podcasting. You have this strong desire to share your message with the world because you have a message of transformation. There's something that you have that you've learned that you struggled with that now you want to help other people so they don't have to struggle so long. So if you can cut down the time in your own struggle in actually doing the mechanics of it and having your assets in place, then hire someone who can help you with that. It's so important. It is because it's a reflection of your brand. So when you
I
get the
know.
404 page, that's no good.
I know. I wish I had podcast expert help me with my journey because
Yeah.
I had so many years of building the podcast at the beginning, and it was a long, slow growth. If I could have cut that time in half with some expert help, I would have done it. Trust me.
I'm curious to know, when you look back at the slog, what was the most sloggy part?
I think I wasn't very good at being intentional about the episodes and my goals of how it tied into my business. And so I didn't have a lot of call to actions. And that part of the funnel and the strategy wasn't really in place at the beginning. And it wasn't until later.
And once you recognize that it was time to make a change, what happened?
I enjoyed it more, actually. Like, I felt like I was on the ball. I had a niche. I knew my audience better. I had a better direction with my business. I had lead magnets in place, and I got more business from the podcast. People reached out. Oh, I like your podcast. And people felt like, oh, you're everywhere. And yeah, just my credibility went up and actually got clients. It was great. Still
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. I'm glad it's not a was. That's really
Yeah,
that's really
yeah.
wonderful. So when we first got together, I asked you, what is it that you want your audience to walk away with by the end of our time together and having a good understanding of how they can implement some audit strategies of their own. How are we doing so far?
I think we're doing you're doing fantastic. Yes, I love that we touched upon connecting with your audience,
Mhm.
finding ways of communicating with them off audio, looking at your word budget and replacing that negative thinking, and looking at your core premise, looking at your brand. What else have we covered, Jen? I feel like we've
Gosh,
covered a lot, or
we
you've covered a
did.
lot.
We're in it together. We are email. We talked about email management.
Yes,
We talked about
100%.
workflow. We talked about making sure that the
Frameworks.
links work. Yes, frameworks. One thing, you know what we didn't talk about? Copying.
Yes.
Copying. I don't know. This is an episode in the making. See, this is how you get ideas for episodes. You collaborate with other podcasters and you
Yeah.
say, oh, yeah, let's talk about this. Uh, don't copy somebody. Be you. Be you. And that goes to if you're looking at how everyone else's podcasts look, this is what we all do. Okay, so we did it. We did it with the
Yes.
best intention. Okay, so we must need to have a season because it seems
I
like that's what
know.
you do. But what is it that you do that is uniquely you? What is your what is it called? There's all these acronyms for it. I want to give it an actual name instead of an acronym. Let's see. Your differentiator. That's the word I'm looking for. What makes you uniquely you? That's what you need to bring to the podcast because nobody else can do that. So even if I don't know how many shows are out there now about podcasting, you and I, we serve the same
Yeah.
big niche, but we show up very differently, even though you and I have a lot of things in common about our episode structure and some of our philosophies for podcasting. We still are going to show up differently, and we're created to serve a different audience. Even though we may have some overlapping
Yeah.
clients, there is a reason why people will go to one coach at a specific time. So be you, be authentically you, show your genius, share who you are, show your personality on your show. So people can connect with you, especially now. It's so
Yeah.
important now that this level of distrust that we're experiencing, this anxiousness in the culture, it impacts everything. And it's impacting those people who press play to hear
Yeah.
your show. You need to comfort them. And you comfort them by being authentically you so that they can rely on you're going to show up the same, that they can rely on that.
Yeah, and connect with you. And I'm so glad more podcasts are getting into the video side because I feel like that is such a wonderful way of reading people, feeling their personalities. I know I actually watch podcasts versus listening to podcasts because I like to see faces.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I remember podcasting again way back when, and I had an intro that was like a male voiceover, kind of like sounding like a radio show, you know? And because I thought that's what everyone does, and it always never really sat well with me. And then I was like, no, it needs to be my voice. And then yeah, I actually finally felt comfortable making changes that were me, and but it took a while.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? It's okay to iterate. So if you're wondering, is this the right next step? Give it a whirl and see. How does it feel when you stand up to the microphone or you sit down with the microphone? How does it feel when you begin your episode? Does it feel good? Is it just a matter of you need to practice a little bit more? What do you like? Because chances are what you like are what your clients like. So do that. Try that.
I agree. Couldn't agree more. I've loved your tips. You have such great energy and you seem like such a warm person, and anyone would be lucky to work with you. So how do people find you so that they can work with you, check out your resources?
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a hot tip. Here's another hot tip before we go. So if you are a podcast host and you are guesting on a show, do not send them to the graveyard. Do not send them to your website because if you say go to your website, they get there and they don't know what to do. Like, well, she said go to the website, but now what?
So
So
many options.
do not send them to your website. If you are a host, send them to your show because you already have a podcast listener listening to the episode.
Absolutely.
I would love to have you join us in the Simplify podcasting community. So you can put me in your podcast app by adding me to your podcast feed or in YouTube. So this is on YouTube? Is that where you're airing everything?
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yep.
Okay. I am not on video yet. I'm not there yet. I'm an audio only podcast, but definitely would love to have you come into the community. Now, listen, if you guessed and you are not a host, then send them to an action step. Again, not specifically just your website. Go get the first chapter of my book or go download this resource. So if I didn't have a show, I might say go to my get this method or something like that. But if you are a host, this is my number one recommendation. Just share your podcast. So I'd love to have you join the community. Join me at Simplify Podcasting. And I'm sure you'll put other links and stuff
I
in the show
will.
notes.
I know. I'll share the juicy episodes that I was listening to over the past few days.
Oh, thanks. Thanks so much.
I
Thanks
know.
for listening. I love that. I love my listeners.
Yeah, and it shows, honestly, it really does. And I know I'm going to start implementing your tips and talking to the audience more one on one. That was gold. And I wish you all the best in your podcast and sharing your wisdom with your audience. And yeah, I've loved having you on the show.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right, folks, we will, oh, not folks, taking Jen's advice. Okay, I have completely loved having you listen to the show, and I can't wait to connect with you again next week on the Leverage Your Podcast show. Take care.